It wasn't supposed to be something serious, just a bit of excitement, but now it's one of my biggest regrets. People have read it, and I wonder if anyone else has made a mistake like this. How do you deal with the consequences? I know I messed up big time, and it kills me inside, but I don't know what else to do. My husband, Bob, age 45, and I, Mary, age 40, have been married for 7 years. We have a son named Sam, who is 5 years old. Bob and I met through a mutual friend who set us up. At that time, neither of us was looking for anything serious. We were just having fun, but we formed a connection and eventually got together exclusively. After dating for 2 years, we got married. Bob is a software engineer at Google, and I work in the sales department of an insurance company. Our family life was going well. We had everything we needed until I messed it all up. It started 5 months ago when Bob got a promotion at work, which meant he had to work extra hours. Whenever he came home, he was always exhausted. We stopped being intimate with each other. Every time I tried to initiate something, he would just shrug it off, saying he was tired or giving some other excuse. His behavior was really irritating me. To not be affected by his behavior, I started focusing more on work. There was a client my company wanted to sign, and I was trying my best to get him to sign with us. My promotion depended on this client. His name is Mike, and he is 48 years old. Mike runs a small fintech company, and if he chose our company's corporate health insurance, it would be a huge deal for us. I was responsible for contacting Mike and explaining everything he needed to know. My boss told me to leave no stone unturned and do everything necessary to get Mike's company on board. I understood his desperation. The insurance market was very low at that point, and we needed all the clients we could get to sustain ourselves in the industry. My boss also advised me to be friendly with Mike rather than overly professional, as that would help earn his trust. I did as I was told, and stopped being very rigid with Mike. Meanwhile, I tried not to get frustrated with Bob's behavior, but it was easier said than done. The same pattern kept repeating, and I got so mad that I confronted him one day. I asked him straight up what was going on. I asked if he wasn't attracted to me anymore, or if there was someone else. He told me it was nothing like that, and that I was getting upset over nothing. It was just the stress from work, he said. I believed him, and stopped initiating anything in the bedroom after that. I put all my focus on work. Our son Sam had gone to summer camp, so I didn't feel like going home after work. In the past, whenever Sam wasn't home, Bob and I would have time filled with passion and intimacy. Now, it was just lonely. We didn't even talk, let alone get intimate. My meetings with Mike were going well. He was a funny and good-looking guy. There were many formalities and procedures regarding corporate health insurance, so we met often to discuss these matters over meals. I tried to maintain a balance between professional and friendly with him, but I failed miserably. Whenever I was having lunch or coffee with Mike, he would say something that sounded like flirting, but it was always very subtle. I used to shrug it off, thinking he was just being friendly and I was taking it the wrong way. One day over lunch, I accidentally spilled water on my top and noticed Mike's eyes lingering on my cleavage. I quickly started talking about work or something else, and he started looking at my face again. I really enjoyed the way he looked at me. It made me feel good, probably because I wasn't getting any attention from Bob at home. I knew it was wrong to enjoy another man's attention while being married, but Bob wasn't interested in me anymore. I was frustrated from all the times he had rejected my advances in bed. It had a bad impact on my self-esteem. Due to work, I had actually become friends with Mike. He started taking me out for meals that were not related to work at all. I didn't mind it. In fact, I welcomed the distraction. My attraction to him was undeniable. I didn't mean for it to become anything more than a distraction from the awkward situation at home. Bob had started to spend most of his time in his office, and by the time he got home, I would be done with my dinner. He would have his dinner and then go to sleep. The home felt more like a hotel for him now. Since I had stopped making any moves toward him, he also hadn't made any efforts. And so it continued, with me getting more and more involved with Mike and less connected with Bob. From the way he acted, I knew he wasn't going to make any move in the near future. I know it was wrong, and I shouldn't have done it, but I couldn't control myself. When Mike took me out for lunch one day, I started rubbing my foot on his leg. The interest in his eyes was clear. I was tired of being neglected by my own husband. That night, I did what I shouldn't have done. I slept with Mike. I went to his home with him, the frustration of all the days leading up to this moment pushing me to do something I never thought I would do. I left for my home in the middle of the night, while Mike was still sleeping. I didn't know what to say to him. As I got into my car, I saw I had 2 missed calls from my husband. I hoped to God that he had slept by the time I reached home. I didn't want to face him. When I reached home, I saw Bob was fast asleep. I felt a bit relieved and then went to take a shower. The next morning, when Bob asked me where I was last night, I just told him that I had a work meeting that ran late. He didn't even pay much attention to it and continued eating his toast. I felt guilty for lying to him, but his lack of interest in me was still bothering me. I decided that I wouldn't see Mike anymore. The contract with him was almost complete, so I wouldn't have to face him much due to work. I made a decision that it was just a one-night thing. I had a husband and a son. I couldn't be reckless like this. With this decision, I went to the office and tried to block the whole world out. Bob's different behavior had affected me a lot, and he didn't even have a clue. I focused on my work for the whole week. I spent my evenings at my desk because I knew no one was waiting for me at home. Sam was still at the summer camp and wouldn't be back for another month. I tried to talk to him during the week, but he was always so busy with his activities that he didn't have much time to talk to me properly. At least he was having fun. Mike didn't contact me after that night. I sort of expected it. Even though I had decided it was a one-night thing, it still felt weird that he didn't even try to call me once. I was leaving my office on Friday when I saw Mike waiting for me outside. To say I was surprised would be an understatement. He came up to me and hugged me, telling me he missed me. I was both shocked and surprised. I told him that we couldn't repeat what happened that night, that it was a mistake. Mike looked hurt by my words. I tried to let him go, but he didn't let me. He told me he didn't believe me, and that it wasn't a mistake. "You can't deny the attraction between us," were his exact words. I'll be honest with you all, the moment he said this, my decision that it was only a one-night thing broke. I wanted to kiss him again, and so I did. He took me to his car in the parking lot and we got intimate with each other. I had never been intimate with anyone like this in a car. It was a new feeling and I loved it. I told him that I'd call him later and then went to my car and drove home. I went to shower straight away when Bob came home and went to sleep without even kissing me once. I decided that I was going to see Mike again. That night, I thought that maybe what I was doing was selfish and wrong, but at least I didn't feel neglected with him. I knew that what I was doing was wrong, and I'd have to suffer the consequences eventually, but a small voice inside me said, "Forget the consequence." And that's how my affair with Mike started. He knew I had a husband and a child, and he was completely fine with it. I told him we had to stay really low-key and couldn't be seen in public places together. Mike resonated with that. We used to hang out together earlier as well, so we could just hang out like colleagues and friends. I agreed to that. Everything was going well. I didn't have to hide much or think about lies, because Bob didn't really care much to ask. He used to just mention that I was home late, or that he couldn't reach me, but whatever vague reply I gave him sufficed. He never made an effort to know more. Even though it should have been relieving that my husband wasn't suspicious, it felt bad as well. Bob wasn't suspicious not because he trusted me, but because he didn't care to be bothered. I used to meet Mike at his home, or he would pick me up after work if he was free. We used to meet for lunches and dinners as well. Sometimes we would get intimate in the car or in the elevator when there were no cameras. I had never thought that an affair with my client would be this thrilling, but it was. I had never thought I would get this feeling of an adrenaline rush. I was so used to doing things in the bedroom that the thrill of getting intimate in public places and in cars felt too good to pass. Being with Mike made me realize that I was missing out on a lot. I was finally finding the fun and thrill with Mike that I should have found with my husband, but beggars can't be choosers, so I took what I got and enjoyed it too. My son, Sam, returned from his summer camp after 2 months. I had to adapt back to his schedule as well. I got less time with Mike in the initial days, but then I tried to set things up in a way that would give us a lot of time together. There was no end goal to my affair with Mike. I didn't know how to navigate it. When I shared this with Mike, he calmed me down and told me that we didn't have to think too far ahead and that we could deal with one day at a time. It felt good to be assured like that. My husband, Bob, had never assured me like that, mostly because he didn't have time due to work. If I was honest, I couldn't blame everything on his promotion. Even without his promotion, he was always occupied with work. I was the one responsible for everything related to our home or our son, which was his responsibility as well. His promotion just pushed things to an end. Earlier, he would give me some time on the weekends or after dinner, but now that was over. It stopped bothering me after I started things with Mike. I was getting the attention in the bedroom and outside as well. Day by day, I was getting less and less affected by my husband's actions. It was clear that my husband didn't really care about me. I just refused to see it earlier. He had not once tried to get intimate with me. Not that I wanted it now, but still, it showed his lack of interest in me. I thought of getting separated from him for good, but I put the thoughts aside for our son's sake. Even though Bob was a lousy husband, I knew I was a lousy wife as well. He was a good father. He made sure that our son got everything he wanted, including his attention. It was a rare time when Bob would put work aside, and every one of those times involved our son. I couldn't separate Sam from his father. I didn't want to be separated from my baby either. Joint custody was out of the question because I didn't want my son to shift from one parent to another. I decided to stay in the marriage because of my kid. My love for my husband started vanishing soon, and only my son mattered to me in that house. I was finally happy after a long time. My work was going great, and things with Mike were going amazing as well. Things at home were the best they could be, given the scenario. Bob continued to stay busy with his work. He wouldn't have even noticed if I disappeared from his life. I used to spend my lunch breaks with Mike so that I could head straight home after work to be with my son. Mike understood my situation and adjusted our meetings to whatever was convenient for me. He was so understanding about everything. It was insane. I thought everything was going according to plan, but I was completely wrong. Everything took a quick and unexpected turn for the worst. One day my phone fell down the stairs when I was leaving for lunch with Mike. I thought of getting it fixed later as I couldn't wait to meet him. Mike asked me to go to his home with him. It was a Friday, so I could easily ditch the rest of the workday. I went to his home with him and left around 6, which was the same time I usually went home after work. When I got home, Sam wasn't there as he was supposed to be. Only Beth, the nanny we had hired to be with him after school until Bob or I got home, was there. Beth told me that Sam had gotten a high fever at school and had to be rushed to the hospital. His teacher had called me many times, but couldn't get through. Bob picked up the call and was with him at the hospital. I rushed to the hospital, cursing my stupid phone. When I got there, I saw Bob sitting with our son, listening to him share a story about his school day. I rushed to Sam's side immediately. He was feeling better by then. Bob didn't ask me anything, and soon the doctor joined us. The doctor told us that Sam had caught some flu and was fine to go home. I took our son in my car while Bob said he needed to get to the office, as he had left work in a hurry to get to the hospital. I went home and put Sam to sleep after feeding him. I made a mental note to get my phone fixed the next day. I went to sleep in my son's room that night. I got up in the middle of the night, feeling the weight of everything that had happened. The realization of what I was doing hit me hard. From that point on, I knew I had to make some changes. I had to find a way to balance my responsibilities and the choices I was making, even if it meant facing the consequences eventually. He listened without interrupting, his expression unreadable. When I finished, he just sat there for a moment before speaking. "I guess I was too focused on work to notice what was happening at home," he said quietly. "But that doesn't excuse what you did." I nodded, tears streaming down my face. I didn't try to defend myself. There was no point. "I don't know what to do now," he continued. "I need some time to think." He got up and left the room, leaving me sitting there feeling utterly lost. I knew that things would never be the same between us. The next few days were tense and awkward. We barely spoke, and when we did, it was only about our son. I avoided Jay, knowing that I needed to end things with him but not sure how. Finally, I decided to call him and set up a meeting. When we met, I told him everything. I told him that my husband knew about us and that I needed to end our affair. Jay was understanding as always, but I could see the hurt in his eyes. "I'll miss you," he said softly. "I'll miss you too," I replied, my voice choked with emotion. We hugged one last time, and then I left, feeling like a part of me was missing. When I got home, I found my husband sitting at the kitchen table. He looked up when I walked in, his expression serious. "We need to talk," he said. I sat down across from him, bracing myself for what was coming. "I've been thinking a lot about what happened," he began, "and I realized that we both made mistakes. I was too focused on work and neglected our relationship, but you should have talked to me about how you were feeling instead of turning to someone else." I nodded, not trusting myself to speak. "I don't know if we can fix this," he continued, "but I think we owe it to ourselves and to our son to try." I felt a glimmer of hope at his words. Maybe we could find a way to rebuild our marriage. "We need to be honest with each other," he said. "No more secrets, and we need to work on our communication." I agreed, feeling a sense of relief wash over me. It wouldn't be easy, but I was willing to do whatever it took to make things right. Over the next few months, we went to couples therapy and worked on rebuilding our relationship. It was a long and difficult process, but we were both committed to making it work. There were times when I thought we wouldn't make it, but we kept pushing through. Slowly but surely things started to improve. We learned how to communicate better and to be more present for each other. We started to reconnect on a deeper level, and our intimacy returned. Looking back, I realized that my affair with Jay was a wake-up call. It forced me to confront the issues in my marriage and to take responsibility for my actions. It wasn't an easy lesson to learn, but it ultimately made our relationship stronger. My husband and I still have our challenges, but we're in a better place now. We're more honest with each other and more committed to making our marriage work, and for that, I'm grateful. It was a hard journey, but we came out the other side stronger and more united than ever before. And I learned that sometimes even the biggest mistakes can lead to positive change if you're willing to face them head-on and work through the pain. He stared at me with a neutral expression as I poured my heart out, explaining everything about how I felt neglected after his promotion and how Mike made me feel wanted. I told him everything, including how I was planning to end the affair on Monday. He laughed, clearly not believing me, and said I didn't need to lie anymore. He was already aware of my dirty little secret. I insisted that I was telling the truth, but he said he couldn't trust anything I said now. He told me he had been working hard to give us the life we wanted, even planning an international trip for us soon. "I know I wasn't the best husband," he said harshly, "but I never cheated on you." His words cut deep, and I couldn't hold back my tears any longer. He continued, saying he had wanted to confront me the previous day, but had given me a chance to tell the truth myself, which was why he had said he trusted me. "I wanted to see your response," he said. I had truly messed up. He left me crying in the living room and came back with a glass of water. I was shocked at the gesture until I saw the envelope he was holding. I knew it was divorce papers. "I got them ready after I saw you in the parking lot," he said. I wasn't ready to leave him like this, but he was. Hesitantly, I took the envelope from his hands. As I expected, it was divorce papers. Seeing that he was asking for full custody of our son was heartbreaking. I told him he couldn't do that, but he insisted it was best for our son to stay with him. I said I would never sign with those terms. He told me it didn't matter what I wanted. He was going to make sure he got custody. "It's best if you just sign without any drama," he said, adding that if I didn't, he would tell our son about my affair, making him grow up hating me. I couldn't believe what I was hearing. Our son was only 5 years old. Knowing something like that would break his heart. I knew my husband would do anything to get what he wanted. It was entirely possible he would use our son like this. I had already hurt my son by having an affair, even if he didn't know it. I couldn't let him hate me. I begged my husband not to take our son away from me, reasoning that he was already so busy with work and it would be better if our son stayed with me. My tears and pleas fell on deaf ears. He stood by his decision and gave me 2 days to sign the papers. He also said I had to end everything with Mike immediately, or he would show our son pictures of me with Mike. I couldn't risk my son seeing something like that. I called Mike after my husband left and ended things. Mike knew how important my son was to me, so he didn't argue. He just told me to take care and to reach out if I needed anything. Though he didn't know it, I was grateful to him. I called my lawyer and told them about the custody terms in the divorce papers. They said it was within my rights to refuse and that I could fight for sole custody. But I couldn't tell them about the blackmail. I ended the call shortly after, knowing I had no real choice. I had to lose my son either way, refuse to sign and have him hate me forever, or sign and let him stay with his father. I chose the second option and signed the papers. I could stay away from my son, but I couldn't bear the thought of him hating me. At least he would have good memories of me. My husband was satisfied with my signature and gave me a week to explain to our son why I was moving out. He knew it would be hard for me to tell our son, especially when I didn't want to leave him. I was sure he was getting his revenge for making him suffer. I knew I had to face the consequences of my affair, but I never thought I would have to lose my son. Because of it, I didn't ask for a divorce earlier because of my son, and today I had to leave him. Telling my son that his mum is going away was the most heartbreaking thing I had to go through. He cried so much the first time I told him that I started crying myself. Even thinking about that makes me want to cry. With a lot of effort, I made him understand that Dad would take care of him and that we would keep meeting very soon. The pain in his eyes made me want to break down then and there, but I pretended to be strong for my little guy. I spent the entire week with him, trying to savor all the moments. When Friday came around and I dropped him off at school, I told him that I wouldn't be home when he got back. He started crying again, and I hugged him, telling him that I'd meet him very soon. My husband had seen me with our son throughout the week. I had some hope that seeing me so miserable would make him change his mind, but nothing changed. I had called the movers to move my luggage to my company's apartment. I could only get that on such short notice. While I was leaving the house, my husband was there. He showed no emotions, and neither did I expect him to. He told me that he had filed for divorce and that his lawyers would be in contact with me for everything after that. I nodded and told him to take care of our son well and that I was sorry for everything. He told me that he would take care of our son and that I didn't need to worry about him anymore. I didn't say anything after that and left the house. It's been more than a month since all this happened. The divorce process is still going on. Our lawyers told us that since it's an uncontested divorce, it will be over soon. I have shifted to the accommodation provided by the company. I didn't have the energy to look for anything else. My ex-husband has allowed me to talk to our son 3 times a week. I miss him so much it hurts my heart. The only relief is that my son is being treated well. My husband has always been a good father, and I knew he would take good care of our son. My boy told me that his dad comes home early from work now and plays with him. It was bittersweet to know that. Only if he had come home early for me, we wouldn't be in this situation. I know I cannot fault him for my infidelity, but it hurts to know that he couldn't make these changes in his life when I was there. I try to focus on my work now, since I have nothing else to do. I never contacted Mike after that call at my home. He hasn't tried to contact me either, and I'm grateful for that. I don't think I could continue anything after being away from my son like this. The regret of having an affair is too heavy on my heart. I wish I had never done anything. If I hadn't acted on impulse and didn't start my affair with Mike, I still would be living with my son, and maybe my husband would have started giving me some attention back after some time. I wish I had waited instead of cheating on him like this. Update. It has been 2 months since I left the house. Our divorce has been finalized by the court. When my lawyer asked if I wanted anything from my husband, I straight up refused. I didn't want any of his assets. All I wanted was my son, and since I couldn't have him, nothing else mattered. My husband has already moved on. My son told me that he saw Beth, the nanny, coming out of Dad's room in the morning. I was shocked at that. Beth was in her early 30s. Was it this easy for him to move on? I thought to myself. But then, another thought came to me that I was no one to say this when I had an affair that ended our marriage. It still felt bad, though. I told my son that maybe Beth forgot something and went to get it from Dad. Even though my ex-husband stooped low to use my son against me, I wasn't going to play with my son's feelings to take revenge on his father. I was just happy that I could talk to my son whenever I wanted to. Beth used to call me when my son asked her to call Mum, and I was grateful for that. Maybe she felt guilty for sleeping with my ex-husband, but I still appreciated her doing this. I even took my son on weekends with me. The little time I get to spend with him has become the highlight of my life. He makes sure to tell me every little detail so I don't miss out on anything. The regret of starting the affair hasn't gone away. It hits especially hard when I have to drop my son back at his father's house, the same house that used to be mine as well. Update. It has been a year since my last update. My son just turned 6 last month. He has adapted to the changes really well. He stopped crying for me 6 months after I left the house. Now he just gives me a smile when I drop him off. Seeing him happy and adjusting well gives me a bit of peace. But the pain of not being there every day, of missing out on so many moments, is still there. The regret is something I carry with me every day. I continue to focus on my work, and I try to make the most of the time I get with my son. He is my priority, and his happiness is all that matters to me now. Even though life has taken a different turn, I'm determined to be the best mother I can be, even if it means doing it from a distance. It's a mixed feeling to see him smiling like that. It feels a bit better that I'm not the reason my son is crying, but it also hurts as I worry if he misses me or not. Also, my ex-husband has gotten engaged to Beth, and they are set to marry within 6 months. Even though I was the one who cheated, it still hurts to see him with someone else. It really did hurt me seeing them together in the house I'd built with him. I got to know about their engagement when I went to drop my son back at my ex-husband's place. He was kissing Beth in a very intimate way. I couldn't remember the last time he had kissed me like that. I coughed to indicate my presence, and Beth got shy after seeing me. My ex-husband acted rather pleased that I had seen that. My eyes then fell on the ring on Beth's finger. My ex then informed me that he and Beth had gotten engaged and planned on getting married soon. I managed to smile, but the look on my ex's face told me that he enjoyed seeing me hurt. He then kissed her again, and I knew he was taking revenge for me cheating on him. I left after kissing my son on the cheek. I would like to thank everyone who didn't judge me and offered support and empathy. I don't know you all personally, but it meant a lot to me. Your kindness has been a source of comfort during this difficult time. As I continue to navigate this new chapter of my life, I am focusing on being the best mother I can be for my son and finding a way to heal from the past. Life has taken an unexpected turn, but I am determined to move forward with strength and grace.